tonight from South Florida. And if you like my content, please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. Also, don't forget to check out my Patreon. I got a lot of really good content on there. I'm probably going to come up to New York again in the beginning of December. I'm going to do another mob tour. They seem to really be catching on. People seem to enjoy them, and I enjoy doing it too. So I'm going to be coming up there, but I'm going to do this is going to be like a historical tour. I'm going to go to places like where in Manhattan, where like Albert Anastasia was assassinated, where Frank Costello got shot in the head. I'm going to go to some spots on Mulberry Street. I'm going to go to some spots where they filmed The Godfather around Christmas time, their Christmas scenes, where they filmed The Godfather. So I'm going to mix it up a little bit. I'm looking forward to that. I'll let you know how that all turns out and when you could check it out. But that's in the making. So before I start taking questions, I just want to touch on two quick topics. The first one is gambling. As a matter of fact, as we speak today, another Lucchese guy got arrested for gambling by the feds. So what's going on now is that years ago, when I was in the street, the feds were all about murders, were all about violence. Like if you were just a bookmaker and gambling, they didn't even bother with you. If there was no violence involved, you got a pass. Believe me, I know, because I know a lot of bookmakers and a lot of Shylocks that could have got arrested by the feds and didn't, because there was no violence involved. Now that there's no violence being committed, they're going after all these gambling things and all these gambling pinches and all the other stuff outside of anything violent, because there is no more violence. So now this guy got arrested today, and the other day, I'm sure everybody out there is aware that these two baseball players got arrested, two pitchers. And it's not for fixing games. It's not like for winning losses. It's for prop bets. Like these prop bets that you couldn't really do with a bookmaker years ago. Now you could do, because everything's computerized, so the computer figures out the prop bets. So they're fixing games with prop bets, like who under and overs, how many runs, all these prop bets, who's going to score a touchdown, who's not. So that's where the fix comes in. So they got arrested. And it's funny because Ohtani got a pass. I mean, if anybody thinks that a couple of years ago when Ohtani's guy got arrested for multi-million-dollar gambling, if Ohtani had nothing to do with that, they're mistaken. First of all, Asian people are big gamblers. They actually have their own card tables in casinos. I mean, come on. They gamble. They gamble. They like to gamble. So if anybody believes that he wasn't involved in that, they're crazy. And I'll tell you why. Because the fix is in. Game 7 of this year's World Series against Toronto, over 50 million people watched it. It was the most watched baseball game in the history of baseball. And that's because of Ohtani. So do you think that the Major League Baseball is going to kick this guy out of the game? There's no way. There's no way. So all these other poor bastards that are getting arrested by the FBI, they're in trouble, but this guy gets a pass. Come on. It's crazy. It's crazy. So that's one thing about the gambler. The second thing is I want to talk about real quick is for everybody that's paying attention to what goes on YouTube. We all have channels. I have a channel. I have a show. My cousin Gene, Dominic, Sammy, Michael, Mikey Scars. A lot of us have, and we were all street guys. So we have all these podcasts, and we were street guys. And then there's guys that have mob podcasts that weren't street guys. And one of these guys, Jeff Nadeau, is starting like a mob war on YouTube. He started in with Dominic, and then Joey Molina jumped in on the bandwagon. And Joey Molina and little stuff, they're going to get hurt, and they deserve it. It's like Dominic was in Patsy's Pizzeria yesterday in Boca. People got to understand, even though guys like us cooperated, that doesn't make us punks. My cousin Gene isn't a punk. Dominic isn't a punk. And if Dominic and Gene do run into Little Snuff and Joey, they're going to get hurt, Joey and Snuff. They're going to get hurt. Do you see the shape them two guys are in? They're in the gym every day. Dominic's like a tree trunk, and my cousin Gene's ripped to shreds. They're going to get hurt. They're going to hurt Joey and Snuff. They're going to hurt Joey and Snuff if Joey and Snuff run across them. And this is all because people like Jeff are throwing wood on the fire, trying to expose people. It's outrageous, and somebody's going to get hurt. And I know it ain't my cousin Gene, and I know it ain't going to be Dominic. They're not going to get hurt because they're going to hurt them. And like I said, people cooperate for a lot of different reasons, and most of us didn't cooperate because we were punks. You know what I mean? I know my cousin Gene didn't, and I didn't, and I'm sure Dominic didn't. We didn't cooperate because we were punks. We cooperated for reasons, family, whatever reason it may be, but it wasn't because we were scared. Like me, honestly, if my case was a state case, I may have not cooperated because going to federal prison played a part in me cooperating because federal prison sucks. There's no privacy. See, and only someone that does time would understand what I'm going to say. Federal prison sucks because there's no privacy in federal prison. You're in a two-man cell. The TVs are in, all on poles. There's no privacy in a federal prison. It sucks. The commissary sucks. The yard sucks. It's just, it's clean. Don't get me wrong. It's much cleaner than a state prison, but it sucks. Now, a state prison, especially in New York State, you have your own cell. You have a TV in your cell. The commissaries are way better. The yard's better. And you get packages from home a couple of times a year. And the best thing of all is you get congenial visits in the penitentiaries, 72 hours in a beautiful trailer with barbecues and TVs, and you could have some resemblance of a family life every couple of months. So, if I had those perks, and I probably would have went to trial if I had a state case. And and I'm just saying all this because, we don't take pleas because we're punks. Of course, Joey Molina is going to say we were scared and we cooperated as soon as the handcuffs went on us and all that bullshit, which is all not true. You know what I mean? It's all, let me correct myself. It may be true for some people, but I don't think it was true for the guys that I just mentioned. You know what I mean? I don't believe it was true for the guys I just mentioned. And I just hope my cousin Gene don't get himself in trouble because my cousin Gene's going to hurt them if he runs into him. And Dominic's going to hurt them if he runs into them. I mean, the man was in Patsy's Pizzeria. I mean, that alone tells you something that he's not playing. That they're not, and it's like a mob war on YouTube. You know what I mean? So more will be revealed. I might go up to Patsy's and have a slice of pizza. Who knows? You know what I mean? I'm actually the only one that actually met Joey in person. So we'll see what's going to happen. I just hope nobody gets in trouble. That's all I hope. Now, I'll leave everything up to you guys out there. See what we got here. Let's see what we got. Okay, let me get to the beginning. Mafia memories. Why did you say Elvis got killed? What was that, a Freudian slip? Elvis, I don't remember saying Elvis got killed unless it was just a mistake I made or something. Elvis Presley, he didn't get killed. Fat Andy's Bar, East New York Mafia tour. How much was a beer back then? I don't remember, but it was a lot cheaper than it is now, I'll tell you that. Not too many people drank beer in the back page. It was more whiskey than beer. Did you or do you know Joey Bag of Donuts, Joey Airlines, or Joey Bananas from New York City? I know Joey Bag of Donuts. I was in jail with him. A guy I know grew up with all of you guys. He was Patsy Conti's, played piano and sang quite well. He said Frankie Burke could be a vicious bully. Yes, he was. Frankie Burke was a little bit of a bully. Unfortunately, it caught up to him. From Steve, Anthony, did you know anyone who sold fireworks on Mott Street back in the 80s and 90s? I know it's a stretch, but it was a father-son team, and they even had an old man selling little bullshit on the side. Listen, a lot of guys sold fireworks on on Mulberry Street back in the day. I remember. I don't remember their names because we had a major distributor. Sammy Albano was a major distributor. He was with Fat Andy and Tony Lee. He was a major firework distributor. But I know there was people on Mulberry Street selling fireworks, but I don't remember their names. From Spider, why did they call Neil the Polak? I guess because he looked like one. He was tall. He did look Polish. From Big Small, you got to go to the Five Towns. Okay, I know the Five Towns very well. Dr. Rick, hey, hi, Anthony. Great to see you. You look great. Thank you. I did lose 30 pounds. Thanks to Joey Molina, because he called me fat, so I went on a diet. So I give a shout out to Joey. From Sherry. Hey, Sherry, what's up? Shout out from Atlantic City. When are you coming back here? I don't like to go there in the winter. When are you coming to Florida? Let me know. Alex, forever bothering Italians. Yeah, they used to. The FBI, right? Forever bothering Italians. That's what they used to say. Sherry, what was your biggest earnings? My biggest earnings were in the 90s. In the 90s, I made the most money with I had so many things going at the same time. Probably the biggest money maker was the gambling, was the vending machines. Probably the biggest money maker per week was coming in steady on all I had a ton of gambling machines out there in bodegas and after hour clubs. I was doing business with Dominicans, with Puerto Ricans, Italians, Russians. I was doing business with everybody. Let's see what else we got. Some say why. Curious why all the Molino fans ignore the fact Molino breaks a huge code in the Mafia all the time or murder. Okay, so he didn't rat. I don't think he has the right to criticize any former gangster. He definitely does not at all. Not at all. He has no right to do anything. Hold on. Muggsy, thanks for the donation. I appreciate it. Did you go to Andy's strip bar on Rockaway Boulevard? Of course I did. I went there since I was a kid. Before it was a strip bar that was right on Rockaway Boulevard. A lot of people thought my father owned it. My father never owned it. Never had anything to do with it. It was just named Andy's. Let's see, where am I? From QGU. Hello, Mr. Ruggiano. Was A like the real deal on the streets, as he says? He was a tough guy. He was a killer. You know what I mean? He lived the life. Good to see you live, Mr. Ruggiano. Good to see you too. From Fem, what do you think about Trump lying about Epstein? I don't talk politics. I'm sorry. I don't really like to talk politics. I'm from Snake. Your father saved my butt from the kids that hung out on 88th Street Park. That was us. We hung out on 88th Street Park, so I guess my father saved you from us. From Eric, greetings, Mr. Ruggiano. Thanks for producing great content. I really appreciate that, Eric. Thank you very much. From Will, Gene, Tom, and you all seem pretty intelligent. They shouldn't allow a guy like Nadeau manipulate them to get into trouble again. I agree, but Jeff Nadeau, what is he going to do? That's what he does. That's how he operates. That's how a lot of guys out there operate. Him, James Proctor, they talk bad about us. They cause trouble. Like even James Proctor, he was friends with Mikey Scars at one time. And then I just saw something on TikTok that something derogatory he put out about Mikey Scars. These guys were never in the life. They, were legitimate guys. They're on YouTube. They got a lot of subscribers. People tune into them. I don't care what they say about me. I got along with Jeff. I always got along with Jeff. James Proctor, not so much, but I always got along with Jeff. Let's see what I got. From Wolf. Hello, Anthony. Love the shows. Thank you. Did mob bosses have bodyguards at their homes? Not really. Not the ones I knew. I mean, they had guys that traveled with them and that drove them home and waited till they got in the house, but they never had anybody positioned at their houses like standing guard. From Francesco, how well did you know Louis Casman and why he hates Sammy? Did you get along with him in your life? I never really knew him in the street. I've been talking to him lately now, but I never really hung out with him in the street. I never really saw him at the Ravenite. I never really ran into him at the Bergen. I know more about him now than I did back then. Lawrence, hey Anthony, did you ever hear of a club ENY at the Bel Air Lounge? I may have not, but I can't remember right now. I may have. It was back in the day, probably. Let's see. From Sherry, every mobster situations were different, so those others judging like you said, watch your mouth, somebody's going to get hurt. I don't know what that means. T, hey Anthony, new subscriber, loving the show. Thanks, T Caskets. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, really. Thank you. Let's see what we got. T Caskets, hey Anthony, that's read that. Thank you very much for subscribing. Benny, hey Anthony, do you think the Chin was more powerful than John Gotti? It's widely said that he was the most powerful. Yeah, the Chin had it going on. I mean, that crew was really powerful. They were dangerous. I would say it was a toss-up. From Stevie, hello Anthony, just subscribed. I hit the like button. Thank you, Stevie. Stevie B, I appreciate that. Thank you, buddy. Matthew, ever going to do a sit down with Mikey Scars? Do you know him in the street? I knew Mikey from the street, and I have no plans at any time in the near future to sit down with him, but I did know Mikey from the street. Mikey was a good guy in the street to me anyway. Me and him are big Yankee fans, and him and Junior actually gave me Yankee tickets a couple of times back in the day, and I took my son to the games, and they used to get good seats. From Alex, did you ever have helicopters following you like Henry Hill? Yes, I did. I just put out a video about that. In fact, yes, I did have helicopters following me, only on a Monday. Okay, waiting for some more questions to come in. Okay, here we go. From Michael Brown, hello Anthony, thank you for all the amazing content. Thank you, Michael. NYC and Montreal are very similar. Also, likely the mob capitals of North America. Did you ever meet anyone from the Rizzuto family? I never met any the Italians, but I did meet and hung out with a Hells Angel that knew them, because in Montreal, the Hells Angels did a lot of business with that family in the heroin trade, a lot of business. And I actually hung out with one of them in Schuylkill for years. I used to work out with him, this guy Mike. He was a legitimate Hells Angels guy from Montreal that knew them very well. But I never knew any of them. But I did know Michael, who did a lot of business with them. From P. Cardi, what was your father's thoughts on the Francis family? My father loved the Francis family. My father loved Sonny Francis. They were best of friends. Best of friends, they were. Best of friends. Thanks for the supporting cash. Thank you for the donation. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. I just wanted to comment. I watched a documentary about Vegas dying. Old timers say they missed the mob. Probably, listen, I was out in Vegas a couple of times this year, and the first time I went to Vegas was in 1977. I went there on my honeymoon, and I was sitting at Caesar's Palace, and across the street from Caesar's Palace was a little strip mall. Anybody that's been in Vegas lately knows that across the street from Caesar's Palace is like amazing what's going on there. Now, it's a totally different town, completely different from when the mob was there, totally different. From Anthony, hey Anthony, did you know the 18th Avenue Zips, Tom, Kafar, and I was there a couple of times. I didn't know them well. They came around like a lot after I left, but I mean, I knew of them. I never did any business with them. I knew Jimmy Brown. I went to his club a few times on a couple of sit-downs, shit like that. From Benny, Anthony, Johnny Caniglia is out. Did you know him? What was he like? Oh, I knew him well. Great guy, tough guy, dangerous, made a lot of money. I made some money with him. I did some business with him back in the day. Always had respect for Fat Andy. He was one of the few guys that a lot of times when I ran into him back in the day, he would give me money for my old man's commissary. He was a good guy out there back then, but dangerous, very dangerous. Sherry, who was your best friend while in the mob? I had a lot of good friends, Sherry. To pick one would be unfair. I had a lot of them. Hey, Anthony, any stories about Tommy Sneakers? I know Tommy a long, long time. I never did business with Tommy. He's very close. He was always very close with Jeannie Gotti. When I met him, I was a kid. I started dating Alice. They had a little club on Crescent and Sutter back in the day. Him and all of them were young. When I met him, the first time I met him, I must have been about 17 and he was probably 20, hanging out at that club on Crescent and Sutter. But I never did any business with him. But he's very wealthy, very well liked, very close with Jeannie Gotti. I've been a captain for a long time. The captain, Anthony, are you related or did you ever meet Lefty Ruggiero? Okay. I'm glad you asked me this question. My name is Ruggiano, Ruggiano. It's not Ruggiero, it's Ruggiano. So Lefty Ruggiero, Angelo Quack Quack Ruggiero, Angelo Ruggiero Jr. is not me or anybody in my family. My last name is Ruggiano, not Ruggiero. That's a big mix-up all the time. Michael, thanks for the donation. I appreciate it. Thank you for everything, Anthony. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Let's see. From John. Hey, Anthony, when was the last time your father spoke to John G? His reaction to Sammy turning? My father didn't speak to John. Last time my father spoke to John Gotti was probably before he became the boss. He got arrested in '84. The last time he spoke to John Gotti was probably sometime in 1983. Because then he went on the lam after that. So I would say the last time he spoke to John Gotti or saw John Gotti was in sometime in 1983, long before he became the boss. Dr. Russ, can you talk about the Qasem wars? I mean, come on, that happened in 1905. I mean, we all know what happened. That when there was two families, Lucky, Joe the boss, and Lucky eventually had both of them killed. He took over, he formed a commission. That's so documented, that's so, old school. That was, the Mustache Pete days. And Lucky Luciano, was a genius, and he took care of that. Carlos, your live chats are great. Please do more. I'll try my best. From Derek, big fan, Anthony. How well did you know Mikey Scars, and did Big Mark really hang out in the Bergen? I knew Mikey Scars. I didn't know him really well in the street. Like I said, we went out a couple of times with John. He gave me Yankee tickets. I ran into him when he was in the Bergen or he was in the Ravenite. Always was good to me. And Big Mark, yes, Big Mark hung out at the Bergen Fish Club. Probably he was there every day for years. So he has a lot of stories. He's a funny kid. I have nothing bad to say about him. He talks very, very highly of my father, Fat Andy, and Tony Lee. They really liked him. He's doing a lot of work on his podcast, and yes, he did. He hung out at the Bergen. He was there almost every day. That was his job. That's what he did to earn money. He ran around for them. He ran around for John, for Pete, and all of them, and he was there every day. So yes, that is very true. So anybody that says that he wasn't there doesn't know what they're talking about, because he was there all the time. From Gary Rouge. Hey, how are you doing? I was in CMC also. I went by the Esquire Diner. Is that where Frankie Geesh was slated to get clipped? No. Frankie Geesh was supposed to get clipped by the Lindenwood Diner. I was waiting for him by the Lindenwood Diner, and his uncle showed up. It wasn't by the Esquire, it was by the Lindenwood Diner on Linden Boulevard, right by the hole, right by the old mill. Auto dealers. Hey, Anthony, any mob history ties with Reading, Pennsylvania? No, not to my knowledge. I was never really up there. We had some stuff going on in the Poconos with a couple of the resorts up there. We were taking bets. We had a runner up there, a bookmaking runner up there. Years ago in the 80s, we were taking some action out of there. We had an after-hour joint up there. We did. My crew had an after-hour joint up there. They used to call them bottle clubs, actually. We had a big one up there. It was really doing well. The captain. I love listening to your podcast when I drive my car. Be careful. They help me stop speeding. What was your first car in the mob? My first car I ever owned was my father bought me a red Ford Galaxy 500 back in the day. But the car I learned how to drive was in 1969. I learned how to drive on my old man's black 69 Coupe de Ville Cadillac. The Dutchman. Anthony, it must be sad visiting your old haunts in the neighborhood. A lot of good and bad memories. I enjoy it, I enjoy it. And you're right, some great memories, some bad memories, some sad memories. But I like doing the tours. I know people enjoy them, and I enjoy them. So I'll have more coming your way. From Eric's, what happened to lucky punters that won big time? Presumably bookies didn't want to pay. What happened to the biggest? I don't know anything about that. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm sorry. I know we paid. We paid numbers. We never stiffed anybody that won ever, even if it cost us our bankroll. We never stiffed anybody. From Alex, did you know 50 Cent before he was famous, he was moving a lot of dope before he got famous? I knew his crew in Jamaica because we had the number spots in the same neighborhood he grew up in, where he got shot, where he dealt. I'm sure I ran into him a couple of times, but we had some meetings with crack dealers that were in Jamaica at the time he was there. Sherry, I really like listening to you live. We ask you same questions and you always have same answers. Your honesty means everything. Thank you, Sherry. I appreciate it. The Dutchman, Anthony, banking must have had some power and respect to take out Anthony Stabile and live to talk about it. Listen, after he killed Anthony, he went on the lam. He was never seen from again. He left Tower Beach. Nobody saw him. No more. Like I said, I knew his brother. His brother was living in Miami when I was down in Miami. His brother-in-law actually lived in the same complex that my brother-in-law Louis lived in, and Louis knew him really well. And Banky, after they killed Anthony Stabile, Banky disappeared. He didn't get killed. He went on the lam. He lammed it. He knew he had to go because they would have killed him. All the Vario's crew had never gave him a pass for killing Anthony, so he lammed it. Victor, Anthony, how do you see New York City's future with Mandami? I see it not too good. Let me put it to you that way. I'm glad I don't live there. From Francesco, did you ever hear Frankie Fortolino? Not really, no. I have to apologize. A lot of people throw these names at me. I haven't been in the street since 2005. And like I said, I was in the street before that from when I was 16 years old. I ran across thousands and thousands of street guys, and I apologize when people throw names at me that I don't remember or they don't ring bells. You know what I mean? But I was out there for so long and ran across so many people. From Eastie Kid, describe Amon Raver. What did Fat Andy say about him, his personality? My father loved him. He was my father's first captain. I believe he's actually the one that did my father's ceremony when my father got straightened out in Manhattan. I think he performed the ceremony back in the day. Here's one from Alex. Do you think Javier Bardem could play Neil Delacroix in a movie? No, I don't think so. Neil was tall. He had light hair, light skin, blue eyes. From Victor, who makes the playoffs first, the Jets or the Giants? Well, neither one of them are making the playoffs this year. If I had a bet, I'd probably say the Giants in the near future. From Eric, would your family eat anything special on Thanksgiving besides turkey? Oh, always like a lasagna or a baked ziti first. Before the turkey, we always had some kind of pasta with meatballs and sausages. It was crazy because we would have like lasagna or baked ziti, and then we'd have all the sauce meat. You know what I mean? And then we'd have the turkey. Crazy, right? From Vincent. Good evening, Anthony. Any other favorite movies on the list besides Goodfellas? Yeah, I enjoyed Casino, Donnie Brasco, Mean Streets. There's a lot of mob movies I enjoyed it back in the day. The James Cagney movies and Edward G. Robinson movies. Ever since I was a little kid, I always enjoyed gangster movies. Always. I can't pronounce this fella's name, but it says, was your father and Neil in Murder, Inc.? No, Murder, Inc. was already disbanded when my father got straightened out. They all got the electric chair by then. There was no more Murder, Inc. Albert was still the boss. I mean, Tommy's crew and my old man's crew still did all the hits for Albert. So they were like a branch of Murder, Inc., but they weren't the original Murder, Inc., if that makes sense. I got a question. Is it sauce or gravy? It's gravy on Sunday. Sauce maybe during the week. I know I called it gravy a lot. Like I'm having gravy on Sunday. I remember when I was in federal prison, I had this roommate, Fox was his last name. He was an Irish kid, American. And I called up my mother one Sunday and I went back in my cell. He was my cellmate, and I got off. I just had got off the phone with my mother, and it was on a Sunday, and she was cooking, Sunday dinner. And I went back in the cell, and I go, man, I wish I could have some of my mother's Sunday gravy. And he went, gravy? Gravy is what you put on steak, not pasta, But so yeah, I called it both. The Dutchman, Anthony, did you know Albert Anastasia had a mansion in Fort Lee, New Jersey, which was later owned by the comedian Buddy Hackett? I didn't know that, but I knew he lived in Jersey, but I didn't know Buddy Hackett owned it, and I liked Buddy Hackett. From Paulie, Anthony, can you tell us about the time you hung out with Rick James? Oh my God. So there was this club called Show Club Magazine. It was in Manhattan. It was a short-lived club, but it was a very plush VIP type of club. And I forgot what building it was in, but it was in this really pretty new building. And when you walked in, you had to go down escalators to get into. You went down these escalators, and they brought you right to the club. And it was a really plush club. And I went in there one night with a friend of mine, and my friend's cousin was friends with Rick James. And when we got there, he was sitting in a booth actually with Rick James. And of course, we went over to the table and we sat down with them, and we hung out that night with Rick James. We had a lot of fun with him. He was crazy. Of course, drugs got the best of him, as we all know, but he did a lot of blow that night. We all blew our brains out that night, but we had a lot of fun. It was in the Show Club magazine. Like I said, the club was really short-lived. It wasn't open that long, but yeah. So yeah, he was a character. He was a character. From CV, how did your father get involved in the life? Was your grandfather also part of? No, my grandfather passed away when my father was 6 years old. My father got into the life because his friend's family was in the life. His friend's family were in Murder Inc. Larry's father, Lenny's uncle, Happy, and he just grew up around it, and he was a tough kid, and that's how he got into the life. Was there resentment and hate between the Bergen Hunt Fish Club and Paulie Various crew? I mean, they didn't like each other. I mean, because of Tommy, doing a lot of damage to them. How close were you with Bobby Burriello? I knew Bobby. I had, from him being around John. I wasn't really close with him. I knew him. We were respectful of each other, but I never was really a close friend of his. The Dutchman, Anthony, did that girl, Ginny, you went out with, who lived on 99th Avenue in Ozone Park. She was a looker. Okay, thank you. Thanks. How's she doing now? The captain, Anthony, who was your favorite character in The Godfather? Sonny. Sonny was my favorite character. From John, did your father get along with Nino Gadji? Yes, he got along very well with Nino Gadji. He got along very well with Tommy Bilotti. He got along very well with that whole crew, actually. Lloyd DeMeo. Tommy Bilotti looked out for me when I was in Art to Kill in 79. He had all the correction officers on the take. He always looked out for me, Tommy Bilotti. So my old man was very, very friendly with that whole crew. From Alex, did you know the feds were surveilling you at the Ravenite in the late 70s? Listen, the feds were surveilling me my whole life. And of course we knew. Definitely knew. Okay, I'm getting a little hoarse now. I hope everybody enjoyed my live. I'm going to try to do this more often. If you have any more questions, you could always email us at AnthonyRuggianoJr.com. I mean, AnthonyRuggianoJr@gmail.com. I'm sorry. You can always contact me through there if you want to do any business with me, have me on any shows, and do any interviews. That's how you reach me, AnthonyRuggianoJr@gmail.com. I hope everybody had a good time. Don't forget, if you like my content, ring the bell. Check out my Patreon. I'm glad everybody's enjoying the tours. I'm definitely going to do a Christmas tour. So I'll let you know when I'm going to post it. So everybody stay safe and enjoy the night.